has a successful career in corporate America and a stable marriage to her devoted husband, Marcus. However, a nice, quiet, suburban life isn't enough for the restless Lisa, and she soon begins an affair with a charismatic younger man who showers her with a taste of the good life. And it's not long before this hot and heavy affair ends in a brutal murder. Hello and welcome to The Dark Side of Love. I'm your host, Bianca Sloan, author of suspense novels about the dark side of love, and this week I'm putting a spotlight on the case I'm calling Seduced by the Dark Side. Born in 1957 on Chicago's South Side, Lisa Toney came from a traditional background. As the daughter of a teacher and employee of the Sheriff's Department, Lisa was taught the value of getting a good education, working hard, and doing the right thing in order to achieve the success of the American dream. Lisa complies with her parents' values, going to college and eventually landing a job in the HR department of Meritech, which was the phone company in Illinois before it became whatever it is now. Lisa does just what her parents tell her. She works hard and climbs the corporate ladder, scoring a number of promotions and working her way up to become an HR manager. All that's missing is that special someone. Eventually, Lisa does meet a man who shares her ambition and dedication to hard work. Marcus Toney is a custodian for City Colleges of Chicago, and he's also something of a mini real estate mogul, buying buildings and rehabbing them before renting them out. Marcus and Lisa seem like a good match, and after a brief courtship, the two marry in 1994. So while it seems like Marcus and Lisa are perfectly suited for each other, there is a little bit of a disconnect. Marcus envisions a traditional marriage with a happy homemaker wife who cooks and cleans, while the man is the breadwinner. Well, Lisa's a career woman. She's got a great job, she's worked really hard to get where she is, and it doesn't seem like staying home and baking cookies is on her radar. However, she does play at being Susie Homemaker as best as she can, laying out Marcus's uniform for him every night, making his favorite meals, doting on him, and doing everything she can to make him feel like a king. Meanwhile, Marcus makes good on his belief that a man should provide for his wife, pouring every available cent he has into investments meant to build up a sizable nest egg for him and Lisa. So, to the casual observer, Marcus and Lisa seem to have the kind of nice, quiet, stable life that most people dream of. Again, the American dream. But something is missing. So in 1998, Lisa is 41, and she and Marcus have been married for 4 years. And while strolling around her neighborhood one day, she finds that missing something in the form of 27-year-old Sienky Lallamand. Sienky was 6'2", charming and handsome, because they're always 6'2", charming and handsome. His friend Shannon King described him to snapped killer couples as someone who always knew what to say, someone who always had a way with words, and that he had, quote, the ability to make you feel like you were the only woman in the room. Joy Bergman, who was a reporter for the Chicago Reader, was a little more direct, telling snapped killer couples that Sienky was, quote, sexually gifted and had no problem sharing those gifts. Sienky was born in Haiti in 1971, and his father, Emile Lallamand, was a renowned soccer goalie who helped lift the Violet Athletic Club to numerous victories and national prominence, even going on to compete in the Olympics. After his retirement, the family immigrated to Chicago when Sienky was 3 years old. Sienky told Joy Bergman that he was staying at his parents' house, which was across the street from Marcus and Lisa, and was out with his niece while she was riding her tricycle when Lisa wandered by. Sienky told the reader that Lisa, quote, wasn't my type at all. She was just ordinary. However, although Lisa was in her early 40s, she didn't look it, so that was intriguing to him. Not to mention, she put the moves on him, however subtly, and, to be honest, most men are down with that. So she'd walk past his house all the time. And every time that she did run into Sienky, she'd make a point of, as he told the reader, quote, flirting with the eyes. He went on to tell the paper, quote, she'd see me there. I was in the basement, and she'd flick her lights on. That whole thing, like they're 12, sending each other signals like at night, like a slumber party or something. I don't know. So the point is, though, that Lisa was becoming more and more attracted to Sienky and less interested in her traditional marriage to the stable Marcus. Lisa's sister-in-law, Rita Toney, told the Chicago Reader that she thinks she can understand where Lisa's attraction to Sienky stemmed from, saying, quote, I think Lisa, she was overweight, she was older by 7 years. Mark, which is Marcus, Mark and them are younger, still want to listen to rap music, still want to hang out. But she, on the other hand, she liked to comment to her, oh, you don't look 40-something. So I think here comes Sienky Lallamand, fly guy with the smooth talking, doing little flirtations with her. She fell right into his trap. So the flirting between Lisa and Sienky becomes more intense, and the sexual attraction eventually becomes too much to ignore as Lisa and Sienky start banging the gong. This affair with Sienky opens up a whole new world to Lisa. Not only is the sex bananas, he is taking her to fancy restaurants, swanky hotels, they're shopping at exclusive boutiques. These are the kinds of things that her husband Marcus would never do. So this is a total fairy tale. However, there is one burning question, which is how does Sienky, who seems to have no discernible source of income, no job to be found, how is it that he is affording all of this luxury? Well, if you're thinking he's probably a con man, yes, as the saying goes, the first answer is usually the correct one because, as it turns out, Sienky is a grade A hustler. Let me count the ways. For one, as the Chicago Reader noted, in spite of being a high school dropout who had managed into his late 20s to only ever have had 4 months of work, 4 months, 1, 2, 3, 4, of working at a legitimate job. His real gift was in befriending women who would keep him in the lifestyle that he thought he should become accustomed to. As the Chicago Reader noted, while he had no trouble meeting women at bars, parties, or even on the street, where he really struck gold was in the telephone chat lines and online personal ads that were everywhere in the 90s. You still see them occasionally today, but definitely not as much as you used to back then. The Chicago Reader observed that Sienky's special talent was to choose intelligent women who put, quote, barriers around their hearts, then stripping those walls away by becoming whatever kind of man they needed at the moment. As Sienky himself told the Chicago Reader, quote, I wouldn't say I have it down to a science, for mostly it comes to me naturally. In order for me to break down the barriers in which a woman has surrounded herself, I must mold myself into what I believe she will be attracted to. Sort of like molding a lump of clay. I am definitely the chameleon. That is the essence of my art. So that's how you put the art in con artist. Once Sienky gained the trust of these women that he was preying on, it wasn't long before he gained access to their credit cards and bank accounts, which resulted in a life on Easy Street. Oh, but wait, there's more, because of course there is. Because as it turns out, stalking the bank accounts of women was not the only way that Sienky supported himself. Turns out, he had a long history of taping his sexual encounters with men who were on the DL or down low, and then extorting them for money. Apparently, at one point, he had a wife and a son, and he and his young family lived near a forest preserve in Calumet Park. And this particular park was a known spot for married men seeking gay sex. So Sienky, he's good looking, he's fit, he's handsome, the whole thing, so he's a magnet for these types of encounters. So he'd hang out in the forest preserve, spot his mark, then move in, taking the unsuspecting man back to his apartment nearby where he conveniently had a secret camcorder ready and waiting. So one of the guys that he taped, Sienky demanded $16,000 for his silence. What he didn't count on was that the victim and his wife would call the FBI, which eventually resulted in 18 months in a federal penitentiary. Now, Lisa presumably doesn't know any of this. All she knows is that she's sprung. She was bored in her marriage to Marcus, and while she's not quite ready to take the step of divorce, she does ask him to move out. He agrees, and now Lisa and Sienky are free to get their freak on out loud and proud. So while Lisa and Sienky are having the time of their lives, Marcus has uncovered something troubling in his life. When he left the condo that he and Lisa shared, he moved into one of the buildings that he owned. And when he went to set up a phone line, he was told that his credit was in the toilet, so no phone. This is a shock to Marcus, who has always had A1 credit and always been scrupulous when it came to paying his bills. He turned to Lisa, who, remember, she works for the phone company, and he asked her to get his application approved, and she did. Apparently, though, that is not the only thing that Lisa is doing for her estranged husband. Even though she had asked him to move out so she could have this hot and heavy thing with this younger guy, she still couldn't quite stop acting like a wife. As Marcus's sister Rita Toney told the Chicago Reader, quote, she'd come by the house, pick up his laundry, do his uniform, spend a night every now and then, and he'd be so happy. She gets over there, manipulates him, gives him a little sex, gives him some trinkets, some cash, whatever, and then she'd disappear for a few days. While getting a little bit of attention from Lisa made Marcus happy, it did little to ease his mind over the problems of his finances. So remember, he tried to get a phone line and was told that his credit was in the crapper. Well, right around Thanksgiving of 1999, a collection agency called to ask about his 2 months late payment on the Lexus that he had just leased. Now, Marcus drives a Toyota 4Runner, so he tells him, I don't know what you're talking about. Turns out, this is the tip of the iceberg. Marcus starts to get bills and credit card statements totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars for things he never purchased, credit cards he never opened, massive cash withdrawals, luxury hotels, jewelry, exclusive clothing boutiques, a new car even. And he's freaking out because, like I said, he's worked extremely hard to keep his credit pristine, and now it's swirling down the drain in spectacular fashion. Marcus is clueless as to who would do this to him. And his troubles show no sign of letting up, because in addition to his money and credit problems, he's suspicious that Lisa is having an affair with another man. But he's also got another issue to contend with, namely, the threatening phone calls that he's been getting. For weeks, Marcus has been receiving taunting phone calls from a mystery man, the man he believes his wife is connected to, that she's having an affair with, the man who has stolen his identity and ruined his credit. He's creeped out that not only has this mystery man stolen everything from him, his wife, his credit, his good name, now on top of that, he's threatening him. Things get even stranger when one day a gift-wrapped box shows up on his doorstep. Instead of immediately ripping open the paper to see what's inside, like most of us would do, Marcus sets it aside. Now, there are a number of reasons why he's not rushing to open up this quote-unquote gift. Because as reported by the Chicago Reader, for one, Marcus was afraid that the box came from the same person who'd hijacked his credit, and that it possibly contained something that had been fraudulently purchased in his name that he would now be on the hook for. And even worse than that, he told his family he was afraid that the box contained a sex tape of Lisa with her new boo. And those calls that he had been getting the past few weeks, the caller was now urging him to open the box, declaring, quote, why don't you just open up your little gift and take a look at what I sent you? So yeah, Marcus was in no hurry whatsoever to open up that box. He even took the step of bringing it to his local precinct, believing at the very least that it was evidence of the ongoing identity theft. The police told him that they couldn't do anything about it, told him to return to sender and to take the whole issue up with the credit bureaus. So they sent him back home with the box. February 15th, 2000. It's the night after Valentine's Day. Marcus and his friend Alfonso Butler were hanging out and drinking beer while Marcus poured his heart out about his marital problems, his financial problems, his stalker, and the box, which is sitting on the coffee table. Alfonso said, "You know what, just open it, whatever it is. I'll help you deal with it, but let's go. Come on, let's do this. Get it over with." Marcus says okay, and the men open the box, and instead of the expected VCR or even the suspected sex tape, there was a piece of plywood inside. Underneath that piece of plywood were 2 pipe bombs. Opening the box triggered the bombs to explode, and the impact blasted Alfonso out the door, down the steps, and out onto the sidewalk. However, he was still alive, if only barely. Marcus, however, was in terrible shape. His left arm and feet were blown off. His heart was pierced by a chunk of shrapnel. Unlike his friend Alfonso, he does not survive the blast and dies on the scene. Marcus Toney was 37 years old. It's as gruesome a scene as you can imagine. Eventually, police are able to recover the VCR box and the address label, though, no surprise, the sender's name and information have been obliterated. So, investigators start with the most logical person, who is Lisa, who says she is stunned by her husband's death. She says she had no idea about the extent of the financial problems that Marcus was having, and admits that while she did have an affair with Sienky at one time, she says that it's all over. Though she acknowledges that Sienky was acting as a financial counselor for her. Sorry, you have to laugh at that. Acting as a financial counselor, and that it was possible that Sienky had gotten his hands on some of Marcus's information, which may have been at the root of Marcus's identity theft issues. Now, police have Sienky's name, courtesy of Lisa, so they run a background check on him and find out about his stint in federal prison. So this puts him right at the top of the suspect list. They also trace the wrapping paper that the VCR box was wrapped in and determine that it came from Marshall Field's, which is a department store, rest in peace. And they head over there to see what they can find out about the sender. As it turns out, the sales clerk who wrapped the gift, she's there that day, and she remembers the guy who brought it in to be wrapped quite well because of the big fat tip he left. And I know you're shocked to hear me say this, but it was Sienky. Yes. The sweater starts to unravel pretty fast at this point. Police keep digging and learn that someone had been making large cash withdrawals from Marcus's bank account. And when they pull the surveillance footage, they see a woman calling herself Lisa Toney. But it is not Lisa Toney who is making these withdrawals. So here's another plot twist. The woman on the footage goes by the name of Sherry Payne. Sherry's birth name is Joseph Burkhart. Sherry is a performer at the Baton, which is a legendary drag show venue here in Chicago. I've been many a time for a bachelorette party over the years. Sherry has a long rap sheet filled with blackmail and fraud. Sherry has also been in a sexual relationship with Sienky for the last 6 years. So again, the twists, they just keep coming. Sherry is Sienky's right-hand gal. She helps with all of his scams and schemes. Whenever he would need access, or whenever he would gain access, rather, to the bank and credit card accounts of the women that he was conning, Sherry was the one he would send to the bank to withdraw the money. So, armed with this very potent information, authorities are now on the hunt for Sienky. But he's gone, in the wind. Months pass, and cops decide that maybe some of Sienky's known associates might provide a clue. And it's a former inmate and friend of a friend, 20-year-old Jason Bucher, that eventually lead cops right to Sienky. You see, Jason is an expert in bomb making. I know, coincidence. Just prior to Marcus's death, investigators learned that Jason had purchased igniters, gunpowder, all of the things that you need to make a bomb from a local sporting goods store. It's enough to earn Jason a trip to the local precinct, and he admits that yes, Sienky asked him about how to build a bomb, though he didn't say why he needed it, but nevertheless, Jason agreed to help him. Now it's time for him to help the police. He sends an email to Sienky and he waits and waits. No answer. Just when it seems all is lost and they're going to have to take another direction, a message in a bottle appears when Sienky finally emails back and says, quote, "I'm okay." Investigators trace the email to a computer in Los Angeles that belongs to a woman by the name of Sandra Lavelle, who, crazily enough, turns out to be an accountant for the show Cops. I mean, you cannot make this shiz up. Okay, so to back up for just a minute. After the bombing, Sienky bolted for Jamaica, and because a hustler never sleeps, he's trolling the internet looking for a new victim and stumbles across Sandra, who is a little bit older, much like Lisa, and a little bit ready to play out her how Stella got her groove back fantasies. He quite literally found her profile, sent her an email saying, "Come to Jamaica," and she said, "Okay," just like that, hops on a plane. There she is. So as the Chicago Reader reported, Sandra and Sienky live it up in Montego Bay for a couple of days before the sun and fun comes to an end. Sandra then says, "Hey, why don't you come back to LA with me?" And Sienky, I guess like a good con artist sometimes has to do, you put in a little bit of truth, he's honest with her. He says he's on the run after blowing up his girlfriend's husband. Now, this would make most women run screaming in the other direction and straight to the authorities, thankful they dodged a massive bullet, but oh no, not Sandra Lavelle, because Sienky had put it on her so bad that she actually sent him a plane ticket to come to LA with her. I mean, it's just insanity. Well, he got around the whole pesky ID issue by going to the U.S. consulate, saying that he had lost his wallet, but oh wait, here's my birth certificate. Convenient. The birth certificate actually belonged to a friend, I know, shocker, but it was good enough to pass muster, and it was not long before he was chilling in LA on Sandra's dime. Okay, so as I was saying earlier, authorities, they have tracked Sienky to Sandra's house. They put her house and her under surveillance, and eventually they catch him sneaking out of her house. And here's another plot twist. He's got bandages on his face because it turns out he's had plastic surgery because he was trying to change how he looked, like on Days of Our Lives when Roman Brady went from looking like Wayne Northrup to Drake Hogestyn, but now he looks like Chris Kostachek. And if you watch Days, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, Sienky looks nothing like Drake Hogestyn. He still pretty much looks like himself, and the writing is on the wall. He knows the cops have him right where they want him, and once they arrest him, he confesses that yes, he did build the bomb that killed Marcus Toney. But more importantly, he spills the tea that Lisa is well and truly his partner in crime. So as Sienky tells it, Lisa was just flat out bored with her life, and she wanted more. She wanted the luxury cars, the fancy dinners, the jewelry, the whole fantasy. So being the nice guy that he is, he decides to give her what she wants until his cash ran out. And according to him, she's the one who says, "You know what? We should rob my husband blind." And again, nice guy that he is, Sienky schools Lisa in Identity Theft 101, and suddenly she's living her best life on Marcus's dime, and he has no idea. Except he was starting to figure it out. Because first he sees Lisa driving a brand new Mercedes-Benz, and he knows that a Mercedes-Benz has been charged to one of those fraudulent credit cards. Not to mention the clothes, the hotels, the jewelry, so the light bulb goes off. Not much of a stretch to realize that yes, 1 and 1 are indeed adding up to 2 here, and that Lisa and whoever she's fooling around with are the source of his money problems. And while Marcus had no concrete proof as of yet, he had hired a private detective to flesh out the identity thieves, and he put his wife on notice that for starters, he was going to bust her with Ameritech, which is her employer, and whoever else, because Marcus did not plan to take this lying down. Realizing that her husband is about to kick her house of cards over, Lisa panics and decides that Marcus needs to be dealt with. Sweetening the pot, quote unquote, is the $90,000 life insurance policy that Marcus has that, of course, Lisa is the beneficiary of. Lisa will split the money with Sienky after Marcus is gone. Sienky says he and Lisa planned Marcus's murder down to the last detail, and she even helped him with those sinister and threatening voicemails that he left for Marcus. Lisa is arrested on September 28, 2002, while she is at work, so she's got to do the perp walk past all of her co-workers. Her trial starts in 2003, and Lisa testifies on her own behalf, which, word to the wise, if you are guilty, do not ever testify on your own behalf. According to what jury foreman George Reese told the Chicago Tribune, Lisa is just not a credible witness because when the prosecutors questioned her, she said she couldn't remember much about the days before and after Marcus's murder, but that her memory seemed to snap back to life when her own attorneys questioned her. Reese said, quote, she was very precise when her defense was asking questions, but got entirely vague when prosecutors cross-examined her. That kind of tipped it for a lot of people. Reese went on to say that the phone records that showed that Lisa and Sienky were in contact while he was on the run was another red flag, saying, quote, that's not normal to keep talking to someone who killed your husband. No, George Reese, it certainly is not. Lisa was ultimately sentenced to 27 years in jail. She's serving her sentence in Minnesota and is scheduled for release in 2024. Sandra Lavelle, the cop's accountant who paid for Sienky's plastic surgery and let him stay at her house while he was on the run, was, again, crazily enough, she was eventually found to have stolen over $1 million from the production company for cops. And so all of that, plus what was going on with her and Sienky, harboring a fugitive and all that, she was sentenced to 33 months. Because Sienky cooperated with authorities, the death penalty gets tossed out, and instead, he is given 4 consecutive life sentences. No possibility of parole. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of The Dark Side of Love. I'm your host, Bianca Sloan, and show your love for The Dark Side of Love by visiting thedarksideoflove.com for show notes and transcripts. While you're there, sign up for my newsletter to be notified about new episodes, and you can also find a link to my Patreon page where you can access bonus material and other fun stuff. Learn more about my suspense novels about the dark side of love by visiting biancasloan.com. Thanks for hanging out with me, and join me next time for another tale of love gone wrong. I'll see you on the dark side.